To get the full course, visit www.zdap.com. Hello everyone, welcome to the ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, I welcome you all to the Power BI tutorial course. From this video onwards, we will be starting a new tutorial course on a software that is known as Power BI. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. So let us start with the tutorial by first understanding that what is Power BI. So Power BI basically is a data visualization and business intelligence tool. It converts the data from the different data sources to interactive dashboards and the BI reports. Now what does this mean? Data visualization is a process, or it is a field in which what we do is we take up the data from the different sources. It can be the manual entry of the data, or it could be Excel spreadsheets, it could be live data from the websites, etc. We take all that data and we just try to find out that what are the valuable insights that we can get from that data. Suppose we have a data about the recent COVID-19 outbreak. Then what do we get? We will get that data about the number of cases per day or the number of cases per week all around the world, and we try to plot it on a graph. Then we will see that in the year 2020, the trend was increasing rapidly during the first quarter. During the second quarter, it also increased. However, as we came through the fourth quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021, the number of cases have gone down considerably in some countries. This is because of the vaccine or many more things. There are many more factors behind it. But how can we visualize that data? This is what the Power BI tool does. It helps us in creating these different kinds of dashboards, which include different visualization tools, which helps us to just view what the data is holding for us. Suppose we are seeing a report in which there are some kind of bar charts, there is some kind of a pie charts, there is some line charts that are showing this trend. So this is kind of a dashboard or a business intelligence report or a BI report. These reports and these dashboards are prepared with the help of the Power BI tool. In today's world, when data is considered a most important asset, the usage of this tool has increased tremendously. So let us understand that why this Power BI is useful for us. Power BI suite provides multiple software, connectors and the services which help us to work on the data from the different platforms. The set of these services are used by the business users to consume the data and build the BI reports. So whatever reports we try to build out of this Power BI are known as the BI reports. Apart from this, whenever the reports have been built, Power BI also gives us a feature through which we can share our reports to all our peers or just publish the reports on the web. So that is about the introduction of Power BI. Let us understand that what are the components of Power BI. So if we talk about the components of Power BI, there are multiple components that are available, but the main ones are Power Query, Power Pivot, Power View and Power BI Service. Firstly, if we talk about Power Query. So Power Query is one of the most important components of Power BI. It can also be included in Microsoft Excel and can be used as a component of Power BI desktop. Right. So what happens is when we use Power Query, we can just extract the data from the numerous data sources and we can clean that data up. Because whenever we are extracting the data from a data source, it is highly possible that the data is not clean. What do we mean by clean data? Is that data ready to being processed, or is that data ready to being visualized? If it is ready, then it is called as a clean data. Otherwise, it is known as a unclean data. So there are various tricks, there are various methods which are used to just clean that data, and those methods and all are considered to be a part of Power Query. Cleaning the data is very important, otherwise the result may askew. So the first step after extracting the data from a source is to use the Power Query to clean the data. How can we do that? We will see in this whole video tutorial. Power BI gives us a strong GUI so that we can just transform the data as we need. So if you don't have much knowledge of the query languages, or you don't know how to use the coding part, you do not need to worry, because minimal coding is required in the case of Power BI. Next important component is Power Pivot. Power Pivot is actually a data modeling and calculation engine that is used for modeling the simple and the complex data as well. In the Power Pivot, what we can do is we can just set or create the relationships between the different tables, calculate the values between them, or we can just make a new table that is known as a pivot table, which is comprised of these different tables. So basically, if you want to gain some valuable insights from the data that is coming from multiple sources, then Power Pivot is what comes to the rescue. It helps in modeling and shaping the data in a particular shape. Next, we have Power View. Power View is the fundamental data visualization component of Power BI. So as we are talking about that, Power BI is a data visualization and report generation tool. So the fundamental process or the fundamental act of Power BI is actually visualizing the data. So whenever we want to visualize the data, we have a component for that particular purpose only, and that component is known as Power View. Power View is the fundamental component of Power BI. It is an interactive component that connects to data sources and retrieves the data that can be utilized for data analysis. There are many blueprints for visualization in the Power View list. With the help of Power View, we can just filter the data for each component, and we can just visualize the data that is relevant to us. We have a concept of slicers, which can be used for better slicing and dicing of the data so that only relevant data is visible in a dashboard or in a report. Reports also created with the help of Power BI are interactive, which means we can just interact with the entire report. We can just customize the report once it's been created. Last but not the least, component of Power BI is known as Power BI Service. So we know the capability of Power BI. We have roughly seen or roughly understood the concept of Power BI. Its capability is to just take the data from the different data sources, extract the data, just clean it, model it, and then make it or turn it into a form of visualization. These visualizations could be in the form of charts, graphs, tables, anything. But once you have created the reports or the dashboard in Power BI, then it is a high time that you just share your reports to the others. Whenever you are working with a committee or whenever you are working with a team, you are required to share your insights with the team so that the team can work upon it. So for this purpose, we have another important component of Power BI that is known as Power BI Service, which helps us in the sharing of data. If you want to share the data online, you can just use this component of Power BI, that is Power BI Service. Here you will be able to just communicate your data, or you would be able to just share your data with everyone out there, and they would be just able to interact with you using this data, or you can just interact with them using your reports. So these are some of the important components of Power BI. Other components include Power Map, Power Q&A, Power BI Desktop, and Power BI Website. So what are all these? We will just look at them while understanding the Power BI, or during the course of the video tutorials. As their work comes, we will understand about them. These are the 4 main components which you need to understand to just know that how actually this Power BI tool works. So in this video, we understood the introduction of Power BI, and also we saw some of the components of Power BI. In the next video, we will just try to take a look at the different features of Power BI and how can we actually install or use Power BI on our computer. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to understand the different features that are provided to us by the Power BI software. So if we talk about the important features or the main features, then what do we have is the interactive Power BI desktop. So Power BI actually provides us with two tools that helps us to work with it. One is Power BI desktop and the other is Power BI service. We will take a look at them in detail later on, but if we just talk about Power BI desktop, so Power BI desktop is just like a simple software that is installed on your desktop or onto your PC, and it works offline as well. All the features or all the things that we can perform using Power BI are done through Power BI desktop. Apart from this, one of the most important capability of this Power BI desktop is that it is highly interactive. Its interface is pretty simple and it is somewhat similar to Microsoft Excel. So if you have somewhat experience working with Microsoft Excel, then you can easily understand the interface of Power BI desktop. Even if you are a newbie, you do not need any advanced skills to create a report or to visualize the data with Power BI because it is quick and easy to learn and use. The best thing about this tool is it is free to download, so that you can just download it and then use it for your own purpose. Customized visualization is the another important feature provided by Power BI. As we know that every data has its own capabilities. We might need to visualize one thing in some data and the other in the other data set. So there is no standard way when we just try to visualize the data. That is why Power BI provides us with different features through which we can visualize the data as per our need or as per the data permits. There are different options available through which we can customize our visualization. There are different options available through which we can just manipulate the variables present in our data as per our wish. Power BI desktop is available for the free of cost. Thus, even a newbie or anyone who wants to just learn Power BI from scratch can just download it from the internet and start using it without much investment. The only investment being your time and efforts. Thus, whenever we are talking about cost, most of the features of Power BI also are available free of cost. So it makes you easy to work with it without paying anything. Next important feature we have is data connection. Actually, the main MSP of Power BI is that it helps us to work with the different kinds of data sources, be it Microsoft Excel, be it CSV file, be it an SQL database, or be it anything. If you even want to scrape the data from the web, then also the Power BI can be used. It supports 100 plus data sources from where you can just import your data into Power BI and then use it as you want. So you do not need to know how to manipulate the data source, data from the source you are fetching it. Only you need to know is how to extract it and how can you use it in Power BI. Thus, despite the fact that the data can be stored in the varied formats, we can easily use it in the case of Power BI. Visibility and trust. Power BI is actually the center of all the data visualization processes. And as we know that data is the most important thing in an organization, so the visibility and trust is important. These two features are provided to us by Power BI. When an effective trust is built with the name of the organization, because Power BI is backed by Microsoft, so we have kind of a trust in this software that our information will be secure. Now that was about the features of Power BI. Let us talk about its working. So when we talk about its working, Power BI has two components or two ways in which it can work. The first one is Power BI Desktop and the second one is Power BI Service. If we talk about Power BI Desktop, it is the software that is installed onto your machine and it is the thing that runs offline. Power BI Service, on the other hand, is a tool that allows you to publish your reports online and then interact with those reports with your team. Okay, so if you want to work offline, then Power BI Desktop is what you are going to go with. If you want to work with Power BI online, then you can go with Power BI Service, because apart from sharing the resources or the reports, Power BI Service includes all the features from Power BI Desktop as well. So there are the two ways in which you can work with Power BI. So that was all about the introduction of Power BI. Let us now just see that how can we actually install Power BI on our system. So for this, we know that what do we need to do is we need to open up Google or any of your search engine and you can simply just search for Power BI. Here when you just search for Power BI, this is what you will get in front of you. Now what you can do is you can just click on this very first link, and here when you just click it, you would be taken to this website of Power BI. Here you can see it is backed by Microsoft. Now what we need to do is we need to install Power BI Desktop on our PC, right? So you can just go to products. Here the first one is Power BI Desktop. You can just go to it. And here you will see this kind of an page would be opened. So here we have two options. Either we can just go to download free, or we can just change our language if we want. So we can just go to our language options to see what happens. Here you can see we are getting this language option. There are these different languages available which are supported by Power BI. So this is one important feature again, that you can work on Power BI in your own native language. I'm going to just go with English, and then you can just click on the download button. Now either you can just click on the download button over there, or what you can do is come back to this page and click on download free. When you just click on it, you will get a kind of a pop-up to just open Microsoft Store, because since Power BI is a part of Microsoft, that is why it is available in Microsoft Store. You can just click on open Microsoft Store. Here you can see that there is this kind of install option which you can click on. In my case, the product or this Power BI Desktop is already installed, so I'm getting this product is installed and this launch option. So if you are just trying to install it for the first time, you will get the install option. You can just click on it and a few simple clicks of next and next, and you would be able to use Power BI Desktop for yourself. So that's how you can just install Power BI Desktop onto your PC. It is a very simple procedure. Nothing much is required. And as you can see, it is available for free from the official Microsoft website. So now let us just quickly see that what happens once we have installed it. Here you can see that my Power BI has started. I have already installed it. Now I have launched it. So it is starting up. It's just going to take a few seconds. Then it is going to start up. So on the startup, you will see this kind of a screen, which is basically a part of the welcome screen. We can just get rid of it right now. And here you can see this is how our Power BI looks. If you are familiar with Microsoft Excel, then you will see that there are some important things, or the interface is very much similar to Microsoft Excel, and there are a few important things that we need to know. about this interface. So we will be just familiarizing ourselves with the interface of Power BI desktop in the next video. That's all for this video, in which we learned about some of the important features and working of Power BI. Also, we saw how to install Power BI desktop onto our PC. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by Untitled Technologies and Services. In the previous video, we have seen that how can we install this Power BI desktop tool onto our PC. Now in this video, we are going to try to understand about its interface, which is pretty simple. Also, we will see that how can we work with Power BI desktop. So we are also going to introduce ourselves with the concept of datasets, and we are going to see that how can we actually get some of the sample datasets from the internet. So first of all, let us understand this interface of Power BI desktop. This interface is pretty simple. If you have used any of the Microsoft products such as Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, etc., then you may see many similarities between their interface and this interface. So this is one of the advantages of Power BI desktop, that it is very simple to work upon. Here you can see this is the screen that you will get. There are these three panes which are expandable and collapsible. These are filters, visualizations and fields pane. If we talk about these panes, then they are the MSP of the Power BI desktop software, which means whatever operations you want to perform, they will be performed using these panes. Because we know that the main operation of Power BI desktop is to just visualize the data, right? So these are the different visualizations tools that would be used. Since we are talking about a beginner's course in Power BI over here, so what will happen is you would be good to go with all these visualization tools. However, if you want any more, you can just get more visuals from clicking on these three dot icons, where you can just remove visuals or basically just get more visuals from a file or anything. Then with the help of these fields, we would be able to manipulate the fields of the table or of the data source which we want to visualize. And with the help of these filter panes, we would be able to apply the filters on the data source, right? So for this purpose, we need a data source. Okay, so for this, we have this home tab. There are these different tabs and there are these ribbons. So in the home tab, as you can see, there is this data group. In this data group, we have this get data option. If we just click on this get data option, we have these common data sources. But if you just click on more, then what happens is you need to wait for a few seconds, and then you will be able to see a list of all the sources from where the Power BI can import its data. As we have already discussed, there are around 100 plus sources from where Power BI can import its data sets, right? So if we talk about all these data sources, here you can see some of the common ones like Excel, CSV files, XML files, JSON, folder, PDF, SharePoint folder, SQL Server, Access database, Oracle database. We have these different kinds of databases like Azure SQL database, and we have Power BI dataset as well. We have Power BI data flows as well. We have Google Analytics, we have Adobe Analytics, we have GitHub, we have this Smartsheet, we have QuickBooks, we have Web as well, we have Twilio as well, Spark, R, Python script, ODBC, OLE database, etc. So you can see there is this long list of these data sources from where data can be imported into Power BI. Okay. Now some of the common sources are here. Also, we have these recent sources. If you have worked upon Power BI, then you will get a list of the recent sources from where you have imported your data. So this is the first step that we need to do. Next, we have this insert tab, which helps us to insert these different kinds of things to just make our report or the dashboard more interactive. We have modeling, which helps us to model the data. We can just create tables, we can create or modify the table's structure, we can create parameters, etc. In the view tab, we have these different options which helps us to basically change the look, change the way our data looks. Then we have this help option. So in case you get into any kind of problem while using Power BI desktop, you can just go with this help. Then we have this file which is going to have these different kinds of options available, very similar to the Microsoft products, right? So this is about Power BI desktop and how can we work with it. But to work with Power BI desktop, we need some data. So it is highly possible that when you are working with Power BI desktop, you don't have any kind of data source for yourself. So how can you get one? For this, we can just go to internet. Here you can see on the Google, I have typed a query that I need some sample sales data in Excel for Power BI. So you can just type this similar thing and you will see the first link that comes up, or the first 2-3 links that come up, are actually of Microsoft Docs itself. So you can just go to any kind of link or any link. Here Microsoft itself provides us with different kinds of data sets which we can use. So suppose you want to download this data set, you can just go to Financial Sample Excel Workbook. You can just click on it and it would be downloaded. So we can just click on save and you can see it's downloaded. So let us just open our workbook in Excel and see what it looks like. Okay, so it is opening in Excel. Why? Because this workbook is in Excel and we can import it in Power BI whenever we want. So we can just enable the editing here and you can see, let's just adjust it real quick. Right. So here is this data source. It is actually a clean data, I think. Yeah. It is a clean data because actually it is not a clean data. It is unclean data because here you can see some of the values are missing. Now what is a clean data and what is an unclean data? Okay. So if we just talk about it, there here you can see in this data we have some profits where we have these values like hyphen. But if we talk about profit, so profit is a numerical value. We can expect some of the numbers in it. Okay, but we cannot expect a hyphen because it is not like a standard number. So this kind of a data set is considered unclean, which is consisting of the missing values. To make this data clean, what do we need to do is we can just perform various steps using Power Query, such as replacing the hyphens with a 0 or just deleting those rows where the hyphens are present. The different things we can do, the different processes we can perform according to our needs and according to the relevance of that particular variable in the data. So if you want, you can use this data, or what you can do is you can just search for a clean data source on the internet, right? So first of all, what we are going to do is we are just going to work with a clean data source, right? We are not just going to work with an unclean data, because for that we first need to refine it, we first need to clean it using Power Query, which is a topic for the later on videos. So first of all, we will just search for a clean data and then we will work upon it. So for beginning, we are just going to go with another data source, right? So if you just scroll down, here is link of superdatascience.com. If you just go onto this website, here we will find these different kinds of data sources which are clean, and we can work on them as a beginner as well. Okay, so here you can see that this section 2, your first bar chart in Power BI, it is a CSV file, so we can just download it. We can just click on it and download it. So you can just click on save and you can see it's downloaded. If we just open it, although it is a CSV file, but it is be opened in Microsoft Excel, right? So if we just yeah, as you can see, there are no missing values in this data and it is a very small data set. That is why it is perfect for us to work as beginners on this data set. So this office supplies data set is what we are going to work with. Now we have got our data set. Let's see how can we import it in Power BI. So we can just come to our Power BI desktop, we need to import it from Excel. If you want, you can just import it from Excel using this icon. You can just go to the Home tab and click Excel from this, or you can just go to this Get Data and click on Excel from this. There are these different options taking you to the same place. Here you need to search for where your data is. So we can just go with All Files, and we have these Office Supplies files. If we just click on Open, then you can see now what happens is our Power BI is establishing a connection with our data source, and once the connection will be established, our data is being imported. Here you can see the data is imported. We are getting this whole view of the data. Now how can we work with this data? This we will see in the next video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to continue our discussion from the previous video where we left after importing the data into our Power BI desktop, right? So in this video, what we are going to do is we are just going to see that how can we work with that data. Now what happens is we have got a CSV file. So you can see I was able to import this CSV file with the help of Excel itself, right? If you just see, I clicked on this action, that is import data from Excel. Then also I was able to import the CSV file. So there are two ways if you want to import a CSV file, because basically what happens is CSV files is by default stored in the format of an Excel. But Microsoft Power BI Desktop although recognizes it as a CSV file based upon its extension, and you can see we are getting a delimiter as comma because the values are comma separated, right? However, if you want, you can just use these different kinds of delimiters to separate your values. I'm just going to go with comma. Here is the file origin, and there is the data type detection, that is it. Power BI Desktop uses this data type detection to just detect the data type of the different fields, of the different columns. So it is done on the basis of the first 200 rows by default, and that is okay because we do not have a huge data set, right? So this is the basic things that Power BI will do for yourself. You do not need to tell it what to do. It will intelligently do the stuff for you. Now you can see this is a preview of the data, which means this is how your data is looking like. Now here we have three options: to load the data, to transform the data, and to cancel it. Cancel means the operation will be cancelled. If we just click on load, then this data would be loaded into Power BI Desktop and would be available for us to use. However, if we just go on this transform data option, then what happens? So we know that with the help of Power Query, we can just clean the unclean data. This is what the transform data option does. It provides us with different features, different possibilities, different methods through which we can just work upon our unclean data and try to clean it. So if you want to use Power Queries, you can just click on transform data, or if you have unclean data, then you can just click on transform data. In my case, this data set is completely clean, free from errors, free from missing values, free from null values. So what I'm going to do is just click on load. Now when you click on load, it is just going to take a few seconds while Power BI Desktop is creating a connection in the model. So you need to wait for that much of time, and once it's done, you would be able to see that you are able to work with your data. So here you can see, as soon as our data was loaded, this page changed to build visuals with your data, and in the fields pane we can see these different kinds of fields are available. These fields are actually the column names or the column headings that we had in our data set. Okay. Now what we are going to do with this data set is we are just going to create a simple bar chart. Because this is a very simple database data set, we won't be able to do much with it, but we would be able to make a simple bar chart. So how can we do that? Here you can see if you want to make any kind of a visual in Power BI, then what you can do. Either you can just go to the home tab. Here we have this insert group. Here we can just insert any kind of a visual into our report. by default this would be a bar chart that would be inserted if you just click on this option. However, you can just press the delete key and it would be deleted. Or what you can do is you can just go to this visualizations pane that is built for this very purpose to just import your visuals. Here you can see there are these different kinds of charts: the bar chart, column chart, clustered bar chart, clustered column chart, etc. So what we are going to do is create a column chart first, then we will create a bar chart with this data. So if you want to pick any visuals, what you can do is either you can just drag it or you can just double click on it, then it would be present like this. Okay, you can just resize it, but what does this visual means? Nothing, right? So what happens is, as soon as you just put your visuals on a page, then this thing you can see changes. Now we have axis, legends, values, tooltips, etc. So what happens is, we have our data set which contains different fields. Now whatever data we want, we can just drag it into the axis, we can just drag it into the values, right? Like if we just get this item into this axis fields, right? Then what happens is, you can see our chart has begun to change itself. The item is now present over here. Now if we just add say region into the values, then what happens is we are getting this kind of a data. This kind of a chart is what we are able to get. You can see from this, although it is very small, what we can do is just go into this focus mode. Here you can see this is the focus mode. You can just go on it and we are getting a chart of count of region by item, which means that actually this is not a correct data. So what we can do is we can just make it as unit price by item, right? So yeah, we are getting Dex whose unit price is 525, we are getting binder whose unit price is 172.86, pen sets unit price, pens unit price, and pencils unit price. So basically this is a simple chart or a simple column chart that we can create with the help of our data. Now if you just click on back to report option, you are able to go back into this report page where you can make any kind of manipulations over this chart. Now if you want to delete it, what you can do is you can actually just click on it and delete it using this delete key. Make sure it's selected first, then you would be able to delete it. Okay, or what you can do is you can just right click and go to show as a table option. Then what happens is we would be able to see this table, that is whatever data is shown over here, its corresponding table would be shown to us as well, right? So if you want that, you can just go to this table option as well. However, what I want is I don't want this chart anymore, I want some other chart. So what can I do is, if I want a bar chart in this case, I can just click on this bar chart and you can see we are now getting a bar chart. So basically you can just make sure that the focus is on the visualization in the page, and you can just select any kind of a visualization from here, and that visualization would be changed accordingly, right? Here you can see these different kinds of visualizations actually. So let us just go with a bar chart, and if you want, you can just get two things here. Suppose in the axis we get regions instead of the items. Then what happens, we are able to get that what was the maximum sales in each of the regions. You can see the central, west, and the east regions. Also, if you want, instead of the unit price, you can get this units value, or basically any values that you want, you can just get. You can just work with them, right? Now let's just go into the focus mode and just collapse this fields and the filters pane. Okay, so now we are getting a visual on this data, but I'm not liking the way it is shown. I want to customize it, I want to format how it is looking. So how can I do that? Here in the visualizations, I have this format option. Using this, I can just do whatever I want. There are these different things available, like I have title. If I want, I can just change the color of this title. Let's just take it as black. If I want, I can just change the title text, like units only, not units by region, only units. If I want, I can just change its size. I can increase its size to say a 20. Like this, or 26, etc. If I want, I can just change the background. Say I want a little kind of a golden color for the background. Here you can see. I can just toggle with the transparency of the background. I can just work with say tooltips. If I just go over here, you can see I'm getting a tooltip. This is central and how many units. If I want, I can just turn this tooltip off. I can just change its color. Suppose I want a tooltip of this color. So what happens is, you can see it's changed. Okay. Then I have this plot area option with which I am able to perform all these other things, all these transformations. I can just change the colors of the data. Like by default it's blue. Let's just change it to this kind of an orange color. So you can see this is how I can change the way my chart looks, or any of my visualization tools is gonna look. So this is this format option, which is very important, which helps us to just change the way our chart is going to look. So that's all for this video, in which we learned not only how to create visualizations, but how to customize them in Power BI Desktop. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to continue our discussion which we started in the previous video. If you remember, in the previous video, we created this kind of a bar chart. So in this video, we are going to see that how can we format the way it looks. So in the previous video, we applied some of the formatting options, like we tried to change its color, its fonts or the title, etc. In this video, we are going to see some more things. So here is what our chart is looking like after we applied some of the formattings over here, right? Now suppose if you want, you can just apply some more formattings. Suppose I go to y-axis and I expand this. So you can see the region, the central, east and west are written over here. If you want, you can just increase its size, say 20 points. So now you can see this thing is much more visible, or the data labels are much more visible. If you want, you can just change its font to any of the given ones here, or I'm just going with the default font. And these are all these things like minimum category width, maximum size, etc. If you want to work upon this title, that is region, if you just want to show it, make sure it's on. If you just want to turn it off, then this region would not be shown. However, I'm just going to change its size as well. Say, let us just keep it at 22 points. Okay. Similarly, the same options could be done with the help of the x-axis as well. That is, you can just change its size to say 20 points. And you can also change the size of the title here to say 22 points. If you want, you can also just change its color as well. So you can see, as soon as we change this title text size, so you can see units have been shown over here. If you want to change the color, you can just go here and change it to anything else. Suppose I want a purple color, but that's not much visible. So let's just go back to our black color. So these are all these things that you can do. One important thing that you can perform over here using formatting is the data labels. Here you can see the data labels right now are off. If we just turn it on, then what happens? You can see I'm getting some numbers written over here. That is whatever the units this bar represents, that is 1199 units, that's what it's being shown over here. Similarly, 691 is shown here and 231 is shown over here. So these are data labels. They help us to actually identify the data in a or the value that data represent or the visualization represent in a much more better way. We do not need to wait for the tooltip to show up to get the exact amount. We can easily see it over here. Now let's just make some changes. like its color. You can see by default the color is kind of a grayish color. If you want, you can just change it to say white. Now it's not visible, so let us just change its position. But before that, we have display units, that is in what units you want to display the data. So let us just keep it as auto, because it adjusts itself as per the size of the data that we're showing over here. If you want to change its position, suppose you can just change it to inside center. Now you can see they all are present at the centers, right? If you want to change its size, let's just keep it at 22. So now this is much more visible. If you want to show a background, you can just toggle it on and off, and then you can just play with the background values as well, right? So this is data labels. Then we have data colors option, which is basically used to just navigate or change the colors with which these data bars are being shown. Like this, you can see you can just go with any color that you want. Okay, so I'm going with this color. That's looking good. Then we have these different this is the button or show all button. If you just toggle it to on, we will get these three different colors for these different regions. Suppose you want different colors for different regions, then you can just select different colors from them over here like this. Okay, right now we have only 3 bars, that is why we are getting 3 options, but if we had more bars, we would have gotten more options, right? Then we have this plot area, which can be used to just modify the way the plot area is going to look. If you want to add any image to this plot area, you can add it as well, but that we are not going to do. We have played with title and the backgrounds in the previous video. If you just want to apply some border, you can just turn it on. You can just select a border, you can select a radius as well. You can just see, if you increase the radius a little bit, you see the border is being applied over here. If I just click here, then you can see this is the radius. This thing is the radius. Okay, that square, that rounded square that you're getting, we are getting its radius. Okay, that's 30 point right now. If you want shadow for a better view, you can just turn the shadow to on. Where you want the shadow, where you want its preset, all these things you can just set. So this is how you can customize the way your chart looks. Okay, so right now I have gotten this chart, which as you can see, it is much more visually appealing than the chart we had previously, which was just a simple bar chart. Now if you want to just instead of the bar chart, suppose you want to add some other charts, then how can you do that? Right now, as you can see in this bottom left corner, we are getting a page 1. So in this Power BI, we have different pages. As in the case of the Excel sheets or in the Microsoft Excel, we have a workbook that contains of different Excel sheets. We can add as many sheets as we want, right? So here also we can add as many pages as we want by clicking on this plus icon. So you can see a new page is added. Now what happens is our report would be comprised of 2 pages. On the first page, we would be getting a chart like this, a bar chart like this, and on the second page, if you want some other chart, you would be able to get it. Suppose right now I go with this stacked column chart right here. Okay. So in this stacked column chart, what will I do? Let us just go here. In the axis, suppose I just get this item thing. In the value, suppose I get units, and in this legend, let me get my region. Now what happens in a stacked column chart is that suppose we have different values, right? So we can just use them in a single bar. Like you can see, if you just go into this focus mode, here we have binder. Okay, so binder is the name of the item that is present in the x-axis. That is why we have taken it in the axis part, right? Then in the values part, we have units. That is how many units of the binders were sold. Apart from this, in the legend part, we have region. That means that According to the region, they have been categorized. Here you can see we have three regions, that is, this blue color represents the central region, dark blue color represents the east region, and this orangish brown kind of a color represents the west region. So this is the stacked column chart that is used to apply more filters than a traditional column chart. If we just go to this format tab, here we have option of data colors, which was not present in our normal bar chart. So here we have different colors for these different regions. If you want, you can just change its colors to anything that you want, right? Now central region is assigned this kind of a color, mustard color. This east region is kind of assigned a purple color, and let us just assign kind of a grayish color to the west region, like this. Okay. Then we have something called data labels, which we have already seen. So let's just toggle it to on, so we are able to see the value of each of these things over here. Then we have the totals labels as well. If we just turn it on, then what happens is we are getting the value of this whole column. That is, 424 binders were sold in the central region, 234 in the east region, 64 in the west region, but total number of binders sold was 722. This is what we are getting from here. Similarly, if you want, you can just toggle the background as well. Let us just assign a simple color like this one. Okay. We can just toggle the transparency as well. Now we have something over here that is known as legends, right? Right now you can see we are getting a list of the legends, that is what each color represents over here at the top position. But if you want, you can just change its position to either bottom or either left or either right, whatever you want, so that it is much more visible. Also, you can just change its name like region. That's what I'm going to go with. You can just change its text size to say 22 points so that it would be much more bigger. So that's how you can create a stacked column chart in Power BI. There are all these different kinds of charts and visualizations that we are going to see in the next video. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, what we are going to do is we are going to see the different kinds of visualizations that we can create from a given data set, and how can we work with them, how can we format them, right? So basically what we are going to see is some common types of visualizations that are used widely, and we will try to just format each one of them according to our choice. So in the previous video, we worked with this stacked column chart. This is how it's looking. Let's just go back to report because we were in the focus mode. Now, once we click back on report, we can add a new page, and here we can add new visualizations. The next visualization that we're going to see is a donut chart. So a donut chart is just similar to a pie chart. The only difference is that it has got a big hole in the middle, but the pie chart has not got one. If we just click over it, we get these different things like legend, values, etc. Suppose in the legend we get the region, and in this values field we get units. Okay, so what kind of a data we are having is actually you can see 1K, that is 56.53% of the total units were sold by the by the central region. Actually, this is a light blue color for the central region. Then we have 32.58% were sold by the east region, and around 10.89% were sold by the west region. Now you can see it is not very much visible, so we can just go to the focus mode. It is much more visible. But to format some things, we can just go to our format tab. Here the first thing we have is legend. So if you want, you can just change the way the legend looks by changing its size. So it's somewhat bigger right now. Then we have data colors. If you want to assign different colors to your data, you can do that, but I'm going to go with the default colors. We have detail labels. So what is this detail labels? These things that we are being shown. We are showing 1K and then 56.53%. Now what does this mean? This means that out of the total items that we have, 56.53% of the items or the units were sold by the central region, and it has 1k approximate number. Okay, so if you remember, or you can just go back to our report, here is our page 2, the you can say stacked column chart. Here we have 424, 498, then 243, 27 and 7 units that were sold by the central region. If you just take a note of it, so you can see, or in the bar chart you can see itself that 1199 were the total number of units were sold by the central region. By the east region we had almost 691 units, and in the west region we had sold 231 units. Okay, now if you come to page 3, then approximate values are shown, not the exact values are shown. Okay, so this is kind of a misleading data, because in the case of the west region we are getting 0k, that means none of the units were sold. So this is kind of a misleading data. In order to make it much more credible, what we can do is we can just change the value of the detail labels. So what we want to show is, either we just want to show the data value, so this is misleading, so we are just going to ignore it, and we are only going to show the percentage of the total value. Or we can just show the category and the percentage of the total value, like central, east, west, and the percentage of the total value. Or we can just go with all data labels, but here you can see, as according to this particular data set, this value part is misleading. That is why we are going to ignore it, just category and the percentage. You want to change the color, you can just change it to say black. It is much more visible. Where you want to display it, or actually in what units you want to display it, that's automatically taken. What is this going to be the size? Let's just change it to 12 points. Its position you can just change outside, inner, you can say inside, prefer outside, and prefer inside. Now what does this prefer outside, prefer inside means? That if the place is available on the inside, you can just add it to the inside. If it is not available, then you would just go to outside. So that is what preferring is called. So let's just keep it at inside and change its color as white. So I think that would be much more visible. Yeah. Now this was about detail labels. Next new thing is shapes. So with this slider we can just control the radius. If we just set it to 0, this is essentially changed into a pie chart. Okay, so this is exactly what a pie chart is going to look like. If we just change it to 95, that is the maximum value, we are going to get this kind of a thing. So basically what we can do is just we can control the radius size with this shapes value. Then we have a title, which we are just going to keep it this way, background same. Then we have this borders option. If you want, you can just apply a border. Here you can see the border has been applied. If you want, you can just change the radius, and you can see this kind of a thing. This rounded square has been changed with the help of a border. If you want, you can apply a shadow as well. Here you can see the shadow is being applied. Then we have this tooltip. So what does this tooltip means? If we just go over it, we are able to see the tooltip like this. Okay. If you want to just change it, you can just change it as well. There are these different options. If you want to off it, you can just turn it off, and you can see now no tooltip is shown. So this is how you can just create a donut chart for yourself in Power BI. Basically, donut chart and pie chart are both covered over here, because we know that what is the difference between a donut chart and a pie chart? It's just of this hole or this radius that we are getting, right? Next, what we have an important thing that is known as the funnel chart. There is this important kind of a visualization known as a funnel chart. So if you want, you can just get one funnel chart here as well. Here what will happen, we are getting groups and values. Okay, so let us just group it by region and the value as units. Okay, so yeah, again in the funnel chart, basically what happens is whatever data we are getting, we get it in the form of a funnel. Okay, so this is kind of a funnel where the largest value is shown like this, then the smaller value, and then the smallest value. Okay, so basically this is what a funnel chart is. It is how it looks. It is essential in modern day data visualizations because it helps us to compare the data between these two or more things. As you can see, right now we can see the central region has got the most number of values, then we are getting for the east region, then for the west region. So for the comparison purposes, this funnel chart is very important. Suppose instead of this region thing, you get this items thing, then what happens? Now you can see we are able to make out from the different items that which item was sold the most, like binder was sold the most. With the help of this funnel chart, we are able to classify all these items very easily. Now if we just apply some formattings to it, what formattings we can apply is, first formatting or this unique formatting that we are getting is of category. So category is basically this kinds of categories that binder etc that are present. We can just increase its size. It is basically similar to the y-axis, right? Then we have data colors. If you want different data colors for the different items, you can just toggle this show all button and you would be able to get these different kinds of data colors for these different items, right? Let us now quickly just change the color of each of these items so that we are able to get a better visualization on how it's going to look. So these are the different data colors assigned to each and every item. Then we have data labels, which what we are going to do is just keep it as it is, right? Yeah, we can just change its size to say 22 points like this. Then we have something called conversion. You can hover over it, that is display conversion rate label options, right? So what does this means? If you just turn it off, you can see we are not able to see any kind of percentages. Okay, we just turn it on. Then what happens with this conversion labels is, if the value of binder or the largest value is taken at 100%, then what is the distinction between this binder and this desk? That means what is the difference between the largest and the smallest value? This desk is 10, which is essentially 1.4% of 722. This is what is shown by this conversion label. If you want to show it, then it's okay. Otherwise, we can just turn it off simply like this. Okay. Then all these things are same, which is just like in a traditional chart. So this is what a funnel chart looks like, and basically conversion was the only unique thing, and the category, conversion and category were the only two unique things that we could see over here. So that's all for this video, in which we learned how to create a donut chart, a pie chart and a funnel chart in Power BI. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. So in the previous few videos, we have seen the different types of visualizations and how we can use them in our day-to-day lives, right? So basically each visualization has its own characteristics. That is why each visualization is used for a specific purpose. So we have seen some of the major visualizations that are commonly used in the case of report preparation and dashboard preparation in Power BI. If you want, you can use each of these visualizations. Also, you can just try out new visualizations and just play with the features to understand their working in a much more better way. Okay. In this video, we are going to see that how can we work with a visualization like a stacked column chart, what all features are provided to us, how can we customize the way, actually we have customized the way it looks, or so in this video we are going to see that how can we customize the data being projected by a chart. Okay. So we are going to work with this stacked column chart in this video. Let us start the video. This is kind of a stacked column chart that we are able to see. Let us go into the focus mode. Okay. So this is how it looks, right? We are getting these different kinds of values. So in Power BI, we have an option. Suppose what happens is we are given a task, that is we want to compare the total amount of the units sold in each region. So we can just use this value, like in the central region, the total binders were sold were 424, 498, 243, etc. and etc. However, if we only want a chart that is how many items were sold in the central region, then what we can do? We can take out the values from a stacked column chart, right? What does this mean? Right now, this stacked column chart is having all the items and how much items were sold of that particular, how many units of that particular item were sold in a region-wise fashion. However, if we only want to know that how many items or how many units were sold in the central region out of this stacked column chart, then how can we do that? So for this purpose, we have an option of data selection or data inclusion, right? This is a very important feature and we're trying to look at it. So for this, what we need to do is we need to just click those values which we want to take out from this chart, right? So I don't only want all the central region things. So firstly, I click on this value, then you need to control click on the second value, that is 498. And control click on all the other values that you want. Like this, okay. Now if I just right click over here, I have got this option of include. If I just click on this include, then what happens? Here you can see now my stacked column chart has converted itself essentially into a column chart where I'm getting that how many items were sold in the central region. Before that, we had binders in the first place because that was the highest number of the binders being sold in all the regions combined. But if we take a look at just the data of the central region, then we say that mostly the pencils were sold in the central region, that is 498 pencils were sold and 424 binders were sold in the central region. So with the help of the inclusion property, what we can do is we can just extract insights from the data and compare it to get a better view, to understand the data in a better way. This is the spirit of data visualization, where what we want to work with the data is that we want to see the different insights. We want to take out these different things from the data, different learnings we can just take out from the data. So on comparing data of just the central region, we found out that okay, mostly the pencils were sold in the central region, so the pencil was the top product that was sold in the central region. However, if we take a look at the overall distribution, then binders was our top product. Now we have got this kind of a thing, this kind of a chart. If you just want to go back to your original stacked column chart, then what you can do, on the top left corner here you can see a button called the undo last action button, right? You can just click on it and what happens is you are back to your own chart. Similarly, if you want to compare some other values, what you can do is, suppose we want to compare binders, so we can just write just click on this number of binders, right click and click on include. Now what happens, we are able to get the number of the items sold in the west region. That was gray was showing, that was gray color was showing, that is the items sold in the west region. So again we can see that the pencil was the largest product being sold in the west region. Now out of these two charts, what we are able to make is that in the central and the west region, pencil was our top product, but due to the sales, if we just undo it once again, due to the sales of the east region, the results became askew towards the binder. You can see in the case of the east region, we have most number of the binders being sold. That is why the result became SQ overall. So this is how we can just work with the data. Suppose you want to exclude some of the visualizations, some of the data from this chart, right? So we have just the opposite process of inclusion, that is known as exclusion. With the help of exclusion, what we can do is we can just take out some of the values and without them, the rest of the values would be compared with one another. Okay. So what we can do is again control click the value which we want to take out. like this, right click, and here we have an option of exclude. So you can just click on exclude. Now what happens, all the values except the values that we have taken out are shown. Now we have taken out the data of the East region, and we are able to again see that if we compare Central and the West region data, then pencil was our top product over here. Okay, so this is kind of the insights which you get from the data. This is not something that you can remember. This is as per the data. In my data, I'm getting the insights that, okay, in the two regions, pencil was my best product, but when we just include the results of the third region, binder became my top product. So this is as per the data that you are getting. Okay, let's just undo this action. Now what do we have? We have a record that around 424 binders were sold in the central region. If we just right click over here, so we are getting option of show data point as a table. Now what does this mean? If we just click on this option, then we would be able to get all the records that correspond to this particular value. So basically, if you want to filter the records, you can just use this kind of a method, right? You can make a chart. Then with the help of that chart, you can just select the value and show the data points as a table. If we just click over it, then what happens is here you can see a table is shown in front of you with the region as central, the item as binder. So if you want all the values of the central region or all the records which have purchased the binders in the central region, then you can get a table like this. Okay, you can go back to your report, and here you can see that suppose you want some other values, like you want the value for this, that how many pencils were shown. So you can again just right click and go to show data point as a table. So all the pencils that were sold in the central region are now present. Now what we can do out of this data, we can just export this data in the different formats that we like. So how can we export it actually? What we can do is, once the table is visible, we can just go to three buttons, that is more options, and here we have export data option. You can just go to it, and here you can see we can export it as a CSV file. Let's just keep this name as a data and click on save. Now what happens if we just go to the, if we just try to import this data that we just exported, you can click on open. So you need to wait for a few seconds till Power BI just establishes a connection with the data. You can see we are getting this whole comma separated values. That was our exported data set. You can just compare the two, they are same. So that's how you can export the data from Power BI. Not just importing the data, Power BI can also be used for exporting the data. So that's all for this video, in which we learned about the inclusion, exclusion and data export in Power BI. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to explore more about the data, or how can we work with a data visualization and extract insights from the data. So in the previous video, we saw the inclusion, exclusion and the exporting features of Power BI. That is how from the basis of a visualization we can perform all these tasks. So we took the visualization was this stacked column chart. Suppose we have this bar chart over here. If we just right click over here, then what options we have is we have the options of include, exclude, analyze, etc. So basically all these options are present. Suppose if we just select two values, that is central and the east region, and then we just try to include them only, then what happens is we are able to just compare these two values. So basically what I'm trying to say over here is, it doesn't matter what kind of a visualization you have, you are able to perform these operations on any kind of visualization available, right? If I just undo my action, then okay, so I'm back over here. Suppose I want to show this data point as a table. Then I can right click and go to show data point as a table. Now I'm able to view all the records of this central region irrespective of the item being sold. Here in this data, I can also just sort this data by using this option. Right now you can see binders, all of them are sorted in the ascending order of the items. If you want in the ascending order of the person who has ordered them, then we can do that as well. And then finally, if you want, you can just export our data as this, export data. Also, these options of sorting are available over here as well. So if you want, you can just sort them from here as well. So let's just go back to our report. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, suppose we want to just right click, and here we have a show as a table option. This we have already seen. So basically what happens is, in this kind of an option, if we just select show as a table, then we are able to see this whole visualizations corresponding values as a table. Like central, east and west regions were present. So these three units are present in the form of a table. So that's the difference between the data point as a table and just as a table. Now suppose we just go back to our third page that we had this donut chart. If we just right click here and go to include, then what happens, this whole data of the central region is shown. Similarly, if we just try to exclude some kind of a region, we can just click on undo, and here suppose we want to just exclude this central region from this visualization. Then what happens is, now we are getting the values of the east and the west region, and the data visualization has adjusted itself according to the two values that we are getting. Right, we can undo it. Similarly, in the funnel chart also we have all these things which we can apply any kind of filters upon. Suppose I want to compare the values of the binder and the pen set, because they are roughly 50% of the pen set values are 50% of the binders. So I can just include both of them, and now you can see it is roughly equal to 50%, right? Like this. So basically whatever insights you want on the data, whatever comparison you want on any kind of data visualization, you can perform. Now one interesting thing to note is, suppose we come back to our stacked column chart. The reason why I'm coming again and again over here is because it is very easy to compare the data in the case of a stacked column chart, because we have two filters. One filter is on the basis of the region and the other filter is on the basis of the item. So we can just go into the focus mode so that the things are much more visible to us right now. Here suppose we have this value of pencils as 498 and this value of pen set as 243. Right. If I want to compare these two values, then I know what can I do is I can just include these two values in my chart. However, if I just want to show, if I want to analyze this data on a deeper level, then what can I do? I just right click, then there is this option of analyze. Okay. And what is this? Find where this distribution is different. This is an option, find where distribution is different. If I just click on this, then what happens is I'm getting this kind of a visualization report that is created by Power BI itself. And I cannot do anything. I didn't do anything. I only just got this report. What does this report say? That here are the filters that cause the distribution of units by item for central to change the most. Right. So what does this mean? If I just come back to my data, so this pencil is actually a part of the central region, right? So when I analyze this data, it will show me that where this things or what were the records in the table which forced the data of the central region to change the most. So Matthew, there is a person called Matthew. It has a total of 16.17% of the records, of the total number of records of the central region. Rachel also had 16.7%. Bill had 20.8% of the records, among the others, which affected the distribution the most. Now, what does this mean? This means that out of the total records, these were the three people who had the most number of records. That is why these were the 3 points which caused most of the changes in the data, and they are the reason why the data looks like this to us. If you just click on this Matthew, now these three values were taken. So if you just click on Matthew right now, Matthew is selected. So we are getting the results for Matthew, that is how many units Matthew bought and what were the items he bought. So he didn't bought any pencils, he bought some of the binders, around 50 binders, and he bought 138 pen sets. This means that, okay, Matthew was the person who affected the data the most. You can see he didn't buy any pencils, but he bought some number of desks. Okay. Then we have Rachel. If you just go to Rachel, you can see, if we talk about the pencil, so 155 pencils were alone bought by Rachel. This means Rachel was the person who forced the data to kind of askew a little bit towards the pencils. Or why do we have such a large number in pencils? It is because Rachel bought most number of pencils. Then we have the third entry for Bill. That is for binders, that how many binders Bill bought. He bought a large number of binders, that is around 126 binders. So out of these total 722 binders, Bill bought around 126 binders, right? Now this is this comparing proportions option. If we just turn it off, then what happens is we won't be able to compare the proportions. We are getting the number but not according to the proportions, right? So we can just turn it on for a better visualization tactic for the proportions, right? So this is the kind of the things that we are getting. This is the kind of operations or the entries that we are getting. This is represented by Power BI itself, and this is why Power BI is such a great tool, because we are able to get much more insights into the data, right? So here are some of the insights. If we just go back to the report and then come back to our donut chart, right? So here we have this suppose West region. If we just right click and try to, okay, so we don't have the analyze option over here. Let's just search for analyze option in some other chart. Yeah, so you can see we don't have analyze option. Yeah, so we have the analyze option in this units or in this bar chart. Okay, so we can just go to the analyze option here. So basically we are comparing. You can see that what kind of values we are comparing in the chart, that also has an effect on the data that we are going to analyze, or that data that is analyzed ultimately, right? We are comparing the regions, that is the Central, East and the West region, with the number of units. So if we just try to analyze the data in the case of the bar chart, then what we are getting is which items were there that caused the data to askew the most. In the previous result, we were getting the name of the people. In this, we are getting the item name. That is, pen had 11.6 records, desk had 7% records, while pencil had most number of records, that was 30.2 records. That affected the distribution the most. Similarly, we are getting all these proportions of the pen, of the desk and of the pencil. Here over, you can see that. So this is how the analyzing option or analyzing the data is important for the visualizations that help us to understand the data in a much more better way. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to see an important visualization in Power BI, and this is known as the map visualization. So basically, with the help of a map visualization, we are able to plot the data that is based upon some kind of a geographical location on a map. Okay, so what is the advantage? The advantage is that we are able to get a much more visually appealing data set representation in front of us that helps us to just gain better insights on the data based upon the region from where we are getting that data, right? So basically there are some of the prerequisites for visualizing the data on a map. For the map, we need some kind of a parameter or some kind of a variable in our data set through which we are able to identify that which region is what we are referring to. So we can have the columns such as country, columns such as state, city, pin code or zip code or postal code, whatever you want to say, or the latitudes and the longitudes. So basically any parameter with the help of which we are able to identify that where that location exists, we can just get that data and we can visualize it on a map. So there are two types of map visualizations available in Power BI. If we just take a look at the visualization, the first one is a map visualization, and just beside it we have a filled map visualization. So what is the difference between the two? How can we use the two? This is all we are going to see in the videos. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to make sure that the data set we have is kind of the data set which has some fields through which we can represent it on a map. Right now, if we take a look at our office supplies dataset, it is not sufficient. Why? Because we have only the region field, which consists of the values such as Central, East and the West regions. Thus, it cannot be used for the purpose of maps. So, we need to download any other dataset from the internet. So, what I have done is I'm on this site called superdatascience.com/pages/powerbi. On this site we get the sample datasets for free. This is just an example site. You can get your datasets from any site available online, or you can simply Google it. Suppose let us just Google the sample dataset for a map in Power BI. Okay, so what happens is we will be getting all these different kinds of links. You can just go to any link where you would be getting the sample data sets. Okay, so I'm just going to go with the superdatascience.com link. Now here, if I just scroll down, there is this section 4, maps and scatter plots. So this is an Excel file that has 2 tabs, and we can just join the 2 tables in Power BI. Or if you don't want to join them, you can use a single table as well. So let us just go to this amazing Mart EU2Geo. This is an Excel file. So we can just download it. Let us just keep it in desktop for now. Let's just save it. So yeah, that's 731 KBs. That's downloaded. Let us open it and see what happens or how our dataset is looking. Right. So let us enable the editing. Here you can see we have 2 sheets. First is list of orders, and then we have the order breakdown. Okay, so if we just go to this list of orders sheet, we have the columns. Here are the columns. Let's just select it and turn it to bold. We have things like, let's just adjust its size as well, the size of the columns. Right, so we have the things like city. With the help of this city column, we can just use this city column as a variable to represent the data on the maps. We can use this country column, or what we can do is we can use this state column, or we can just use this longitude and the latitude values as well. So this kind of a data set is important. This kind of a data set is perfect. Apart from this, one important information that we get is this is a clean data set. You can see no missing values are there, and that's what we are going to use. Okay, so let us just close it in Excel. We can just save those changes. That is, we bolded it out. Now let's come back to our Power BI. First of all, let us just import it from Excel. So that dataset was present in our desktop. That is this one. We can just click on open. Now you need to wait for a few seconds while the connection is being established between Power BI and our dataset. Okay. Once the connection has been established, we would be able to see the dataset in the form of a dialog box, and we would be able to make some changes to it. So here we have the list of orders, and yeah, here are the list of the orders table or list of the orders worksheet that we had with all these things like city, country, state, longitude, latitude values, what we can do is just select this from here using the checkbox and click on load button. We didn't transform the data because it is already a clean data set, right? Now we need to wait for a few seconds till the queries have been processed or the data is being loaded into our Power BI. Now you can see that it is loading the data by creating a connection in the model. So we need to wait for that much amount of time. Right. So now our data is loaded. You can see we are getting two tables in the fields column. One is this office supplies and then we have list of orders. If we just expand this list of orders, we can see these different columns are available. Now, let us just create a map. We can just click on this map visualization and you can see a map is present. But we cannot understand it because of course there is nothing. So the fields that we are going to concern ourselves with is the location field, the size field, this one, and this legend field. Okay, so first of all, the location field, what we can do is get this country in the location field, because on the basis of the country we would be able to just plot the data, or Power BI would plot the data for ourselves based upon the country. You can see these are the countries that are marked with bubbles. These are all the countries that are present in our data set. You can see some of these countries have been marked while some are not. Now, if you want in this map to show some data, what you can do? You can see these bubbles which are marking the countries. Actually, what we can do is we can just get any kind of a column or any kind of field into the size field, and then what happens is the size of these bubbles will vary according to the value of the field, right? Suppose if we just get the order ID, that means with the help of the order ID we would be able to get that how many orders were placed in a particular country, right? So if we just drag this order ID into the size field, then what happens? You can see the bubbles have changed their size. Like you can see Germany has now a count of 806. Finland has a count of 34. Sweden has a count of 100. So you can see the size of the bubbles is variable. It is changed. Why? Because we have changed, or we have put it this count of order ID in the size fashion, or in the size. Now the bubble size is according to the order ID. That is, the larger the number of the orders placed in the country, the larger the size of the bubble is. Okay. Now what happens with this legend field? Suppose we have some kind of a thing, say region. Right. If we just drag this region into this legend field, then what happens? You can see there are some of the bubbles that have changed their color to orange, some bubbles to light blue, and some to dark blue. Right. And here we are getting, let's just go into the focus mode for a better visualization. Here we are getting a legend saying that light blue color represents the central region, dark blue color represents the north region, and this yellowish orange or orangish brown kind of a color represents the south region. So basically what happens is all our countries have been divided into different kinds of regions, and with the help of them we are able to distinguish. Like you can see France is in the central region, United Kingdom is in the north region. Similarly, Italy and Spain are part of the south region. So this is how we can actually classify the data into the different kinds of formats, or the different kinds of categories, or the different kinds of values, depending upon the fact that what filters we are applying on the data. So that's how you can work with a map visualization in Power BI. That's all for this video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Power BI tutorials. These tutorials are brought to you by ZDAP Technologies and Services. In this video, we are going to explore more about the maps and basically work with the two types of map visualizations that are available with us in Power BI. So in the previous video, we saw that how on the basis of the country in the location field, we can easily gather the data according to the bubble size. That is, the larger the size of the bubbles, that means more of the orders have been placed by that particular country. However, if you don't want this country field, you can just get some other fields as well. Suppose we have the city field, that is also a valid criteria for making out a map. Here you can see the city criteria is also used, can also be used. Then we have a state criteria. This can also be used. We can just drag this state thing over here. You can see the state criteria can also be used. However, instead of the city, state, country, etc., we have another criteria that can be used, and that is latitude and longitude values. If you can see, we have two fields here, that is the latitude and the longitude fields in the case of our maps. If you want, we can use them as well. So for this purpose, what we need to do first of all is get rid of any kind of field in this location. So we can just remove this state by clicking on the cross icon that was present. Then in the latitude and the longitude, we can only use these two values if we have the latitude and the longitude variables in our dataset. Now in our dataset, we have this lat, that stands for latitude, and this LON that stands for longitude. So what we can do is just drag this latitude over here. Now as soon as we drag it here, we are getting a warning that to display latitude and longitude pairs, set the aggregate for latitude and longitude to don't summarize. Now what does this mean? As soon as we drag this latitude value over here, instead of getting latitude, we are getting average of latitude. So what we can do is we can just see that as soon as we drag this option here, we are getting some kind of a summarization. Like in the case of order ID also, we are getting count of order ID. So this is what Power BI does. It automatically summarizes the numerical values into the basis of a particular criteria it thinks is fit for that particular value. So what we can do, if we want to change the summarization, we can just click on this kind of an arrow icon, and here we have different kinds of other summarization. So if you want other summarizations, you can just go with it. However, I'm just going to don't summarize because I don't want this latitude and longitude to be summarized. So now you can see the latitude is only present as LAT and it's not summarized. Similarly, we can also drag the longitude over here and just change its summary type to don't summarize. Now you can see we are getting a map that is based upon latitude and longitude, that is the corresponding order ID on the basis of the latitudes and the longitudes. Okay, we have count of order ID, but if you want, we can just write count distinct. That is another summarization criteria available on the basis of the order ID. Now what does this count distinct means? That means only the unique values would be counted. So if you want to go with count distinct, you can just go with count distinct as well. So the unique values would be counted, which is I think the same as count. So you can just go with count or count distinct. Now you can see we are getting a lot of data points here, but they are all messed up. So what we may need to do is we may need to dive deeper into our map, or we may need to zoom in into our map. But here you can see we can zoom the map like this using the scroll button of our mouse, right, like this. If you want, we can zoom in and zoom out using this scroll button. Okay, here you can see if you just zoom in, that for these latitudes we have as per the corresponding latitudes we have the results. Okay, like you can see in Milan we have around 45 order IDs, so its bubble is bigger. Then we have Como, in which we have only 3 orders, that's why its bubble is comparatively smaller to Milan, and we are getting the most accurate results because we are comparing it on the basis of the latitude and the longitude, right? Similarly, you can see in the different regions of Paris here we have 64 order ID in Paris, and then some of these cities which are outside Paris, we are getting these different number of order IDs. So this is one way to zoom in and zoom out, that is this scrolling through with the help of the mouse. But if you want to add the zoom controls into your map, Then how can you do that? So we can just go to this format button. Here we have this map controls. If we just go over it, we have this option of zoom buttons, which is by default turned to off. If we just toggle it to on, then what happens? We get two buttons, this plus and the minus button, from where we can just change our zoom levels by just clicking on them. Okay. Now what all formatting options we have is, firstly we have this legends. That means if you want to show the legend's position, you can just work with it. We have data colors if you want to change the colors of the data of the legends. Then we have category, so we have turned category to off. If we just toggle it to on, then you can see we are getting the latitude and the longitude values as well. Okay, so let's better turn it off because it is messing up our maps. Then we have the bubbles. Right, for the case of the bubbles, we can work with its size. Right now it's set to -10. If we just set it to say 29, you can see bigger bubbles are here, or 100, very big bubbles. So we can just keep it as a default. We can just click on revert to default, so as to get a standard size according to our map. Then we have map controls, which we have seen. Then we have map styles. Right now we are getting a road theme. If you want, you can just change these themes to different things, like I want aerial theme. So I can select the aerial theme, and now we are getting the aerial map. Okay, aerial view of the place according to the data. Right, if you want some other theme, suppose I want a dark theme of the map, so the dark theme is present there like this. Similarly, we can get other themes as well. So let's just stick with the aerial theme. Also we can just control if we want to see the labels or not. As I have turned off the labels, now you can see I'm not getting any labels. I'm not able to identify that which city or which country I am on. I can just only go over a particular bubble to get information about it with the help of a tooltip. If you want, you can just turn the labels off or on. Then these are all these different kinds of controls. We have some general controls which help us to just add some of the things, like where the map is going to be located or where our visualization is going to be located. If you want any kind of an alternative text that will be visible, then we can just select it using the general option. So this is about the map visualization in Power BI. We have other visualization known as the filled map visualization. If we just click over it, so what happens? You can see we now are getting a filled map over here, but we are not able to get any kind of data. Why? Because we again need to drag this latitude and the longitude fields, and let's just change it to don't summarize. Or what we can do is, instead of latitude and longitude, let us just first work with a country. So we can just drag the country in the location part, and now you can see it's taking some time. So now what happens? You can see this is how a filled map looks. Basically what happens is, on the basis of country, we are able to get these different countries. If we just get rid of this region option, then what happens is we are getting these countries which from where we have got orders. Now we don't need count of order ID. We can just get rid of it. Suppose we want it on the basis of order date. Okay, so we can see that this is a kind of a visualization that instead of showing us the size of the bubbles or comparing the data according to the size of bubbles, it shows us that which countries have placed the orders. Like if we get this region into the legend field and the country in the location field, then we are able to find out that which country is actually a part of which region. So with the help of filled map, we are not able to work with the size. We are not getting any kind of bubbles, but we are getting the region shaded, the region that is present over here. So that is the difference between a filled map and a normal map in Power BI. We will learn more about filled map in the next video. That's all for this video.